What is going on, Bills Mafia, Built in Buffalo fam? Got another great episode for you guys tonight for Off the Edge. I'm joined by none other than Lance, the president of Built in Buffalo. If you don't know him, you should probably know him by now, as Akeem always says. But Lance joining me today. Gonna be a great show. Let's get right into it. Off-season shows start right now. What is going on, Built Buffalo fam? Welcome back to another episode of Off the Edge. Got another good one for you guys tonight. Unfortunately, though, it is the start of technical off-season shows for the Buffalo Bills. But yeah, we got a good one for you guys tonight. As you can see as well, I'm also still, again, not in my normal area. I'm actually having construction in my house where that is happening. So I'm in kind of a different area right now. But I'm joined by Lance Nelson, president of Built in Buffalo. You've probably seen them all over Built in Buffalo's pages, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever it is. So Lance, how you doing?
Doing well. And Bills Mafia, how we doing?
And if you see me leaning like this, by the way, every once in a while, for those in the audience, I'm actually just the only one at my house right now, and my dog is here, and he's being very annoying, so I'm just letting him in and out of certain spots. So if you see that, that's more wondering, well, why does he keep leaning that way? That's why. But on to now the reason why everybody's here is Buffalo Bills football, right? So season did end in a heartbreaker to the Kansas City Chiefs. Another wide right, another just game that they had it right there in their hand. They should have probably won the game. They had, whether it was the defense, offense, special teams, just needed one big play from one of those sides of the ball. But they did end up losing in a tough one. So Lance, I just want your initial thoughts on just the loss in the game itself.
Yeah, definitely a heartbreaker. I think, maybe people saw how Jordan Poyer was sitting on the bench like, man, like that's how we lose. That's kind of what my takeaway was, being in the stands just was kind of a tough one to be sitting there. And then you had to wait, 15, 20 minutes to get out of your section and, just sit with it. And it was just like, you're in it all the way to the end. And then one play happens and it's like, oh, man, it's over. Just bang. So just an instant kind of air out of the lungs kind of feeling and just tough one to swallow. But obviously I have full faith in this regime and everything to kind of retool this team this offseason and everything to, hopefully make another run at it next year, obviously. And we'll get into all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, I already see some comments. I see a boy, Robbie. I love Robbie. Shout out to Robbie. He was asking about the defense safeties. Don't worry, we will get into that and get into just our thoughts on what they need to do. But yeah, as you said, I feel like a lot of Bills fans felt kind of what Poyer felt in that video. Just sitting there, kind of just like, again, this is how it's lost. It's just, and it's demoralizing for a lot of, I know a lot of fans that are just like, why do I do this every year? Why do we do this to ourselves?
Right.
And obviously there are some amazing, phenomenal moments that happen throughout the season, but to have your season end every year kind of in a heartbreaking fashion, it doesn't get easier. I know a lot of people say it does, but at the end of the day, that moment, that feeling, it may get easier to accept that you lost, but the feeling of the disappointment and the feeling of just the effects of a loss, it's still there. So it's a tough one. I know a lot of people, there's different reasons. I saw Roy coming in here saying, too many injuries, not enough offensive weapons, right? There's a million reasons the Bills lost that game, those being some of the reasons. So it's just, it was a good season still. But before we get into just everything in the offseason and everything, I do want to just talk about real quick about, we mentioned the wide right, Tyler Bass missed a field goal to tie the game. And there was a lot of talk about just Tyler Bass in general. He deactivated his social medias. He, obviously has been very quiet since the game, which is very understandable. I did, however, get a chance to go today and interview the founder and executive director of 10 Lives Club, which Tyler Bass is the ambassador for. And I got to interview just her asking about just all the donations which have been coming in, because that is one thing I did want to just mention real quick. If you haven't heard about it or haven't checked it out, go check out 10livesclub.com. So www.10, it's spelled out, so TEN, 10livesclub.com. Go check them out. If you can donate. If you can help in any way, just that'd be awesome. They've already received over $358,000 from all over. They did end up actually showing me the just the receipts of some of these, and some of them are coming from different countries. Some of them are coming from all over the world. So it's really awesome to see. So if you haven't heard about that and you haven't checked out the video, the interview yet, it is up on Built in Buffalo's Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So go check that out. So Lance, I just wanted to talk to you real quick. What are your thoughts on just Tyler Bass and that whole situation of the missed field goal, and just what fans how they should kind of react to Tyler Bass, say, next season?
Yeah, no, it's definitely, like I said, that was the wind out of your sail moment when the kick didn't go in, and it wasn't very close to going in either. So I get people's disappointment, but I mean, again, it's a game. Tyler Bass, a human being, does great work in the community, and 10 Lives is one of the businesses, or whatever you want to say, charities, that he kind of participates with, and it's a great cause. So shout out to you. It's a great job going on down there and getting with the director there, and just having a little bit of time and getting people some to know a little bit more about them. And I think that was really a cool moment. So overall, Tyler Bass was a very, very good kicker. Maybe it was 2 or 3 years ago now where he had the season, one of the best seasons, and I think he's still got it in him. I think this year it wasn't great. Definitely wasn't steady as he goes, missed some things. And hopefully this offseason he can kind of get his mind clear and come back next year and be that effective type of kicker that we're used to him being. I think that he proved himself that he has it in him. He can do it. And for whatever reason, just wasn't really working out for him this year, it seemed. And, he missed a few he probably should have back. And I think he'll, work on that this offseason and be able to get right for the run next year.
Yeah, and I think the hardest part when you're looking at Tyler Bass is he hasn't had this season was worse than his technical second worst season since his rookie season, at least. So besides his rookie year, this has been his worst year, and he hit on 82% of his field goals. Look, yes, he struggled, especially towards the end of the year. I think that's one reason why it stands out more. But in reality, he still had a pretty good year as a kicker. 82%. And you obviously like to see it more at his average of the past 2 years, which was 87%. That's what he had in 2022 and 2021. But at the end of the day, he makes one more of those field goals, and he's probably up there at 87%. So, and I think it just sucks to see, kind of everybody jump on kickers because of one field goal or one missed field goal. But that's, at the end of the day, that's part of being a kicker, right? Is that pressure can be so much of one field goal can really kind of change the trajectory of your career and change whether it's you're looked at for one reason or you're looked at for the other. And I want to pull up Roy's comment here that just came in as well. Bass was not the reason we lost that game at all, because I think also a lot of fans that hasn't been talked about much is, I think, are there that many fans that would have been super confident if they do make that field goal to stop the Chiefs from going down and getting a field goal in a minute 50. So it's, a lot of different factors into it. And it sucks to see Tyler Bass go through what he's going through, but I think he'll come back stronger next year. I think he'll come back ready to go and kind of clear his head a little bit after he takes a little bit off. So, but didn't want to dive in too deep with Tyler Bass. We all know, obviously, the great things that have at least come from the missed field goal, which was the amount of money raised for 10 Lives Club, and it's still growing today and at this minute. So that's awesome. But I do want to just move on now into kind of the offseason a little bit. And before we get to the defense, and I'm seeing Robbie's comment again. Robbie, I promise, first defensive, when we talk about the defense, that'll be the first thing we bring up. But before we get into that, I do just want to ask you about the season. And what was just a moment or two that were your favorites throughout the season. If you're in the comments, by the way, comment down below any of your favorite moments from the season. So Lance, what was just a moment or two that really just is going to stick with you from the season?
Yeah, I think that just being recency bias, that Khalil Shakir touchdown against Pittsburgh there, that kind of sealed the deal, was really cool to be there for and see him do that kind of thing. But outside of that, I think that just clobbering Miami week 4 was kind of a highlight, and then we kind of went down after that, right? It just was kind of an empty kind of abyss for a little while, meandering through and highs and lows. But yeah, beating Miami twice obviously was a great thing that the Bills did. But I think the one favorite moment was seeing Shakir score that touchdown in the wild card round, where you were able to kind of let a deep breath out and say, all right, we got this one, on to the next.
Yeah, that one, I still don't know how he did what he did not play. One of the
You look at those pictures, right? And he's kind of like, like, man, how did he keep his balance?
Otherworldly athletes, right? That's like people say that like that. Those are the types of plays that really just show you like these athletes are on another level than any average human being. But yeah, that's a great one. I also want to talk about, you talk about the Dolphins game. That Diggs play in the Dolphins game will forever stand out to me. That one was just unbelievable. The Cowboys game in general, I was actually going to bring it up. Watching Cook run, though, that to get more specific of the Dolphins game from Marianne here, yes, watching Cook in that game was unbelievable. And then I'm going to go a little bit further here on the Matt Milano point. Watching Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard together before he got hurt was phenomenal to watch.
Terrell Bernard's glow up was fucking awesome, dude.
Yeah, that was awesome. And then alluding to the Steelers game as well, Josh Allen's that run in the playoffs was, I mean, you had some great highlights from that game, right? And that was just one of them, that huge long run. So it's been a great season. I know this is one thing that I also wanted to ask you was I got brought up a while ago, I saw on Twitter, and I ended up putting a poll out to Bills Mafia to see what they thought. And it started off because I saw this Patriots account kind of talking about, all right, it was probably like week 10, 11 around there. So the Patriots at this point are 2-8, I believe. They asked, would you rather have a season like the Patriots were having this year, so bottom 3, bottom 4 team, just really not a good season, or would you rather lose in the Super Bowl? And I found it interesting because all Patriots fans were saying they'd rather have another bad season and guarantee them the top 5 pick. All of Bills Mafia was saying they'd rather lose in the Super Bowl. This is one of those seasons where it's like, well, would you rather have an entire season and then one really, really, really horrible, disappointing game, or would you rather have every week kind of feel like nothing's going on? So I know which side I'm on. I'd rather lose in the Super Bowl. So that's one thing I wanted to ask you quick. What did you think? Would you rather side with losing in the Super Bowl, or would you rather be a top 5 worst team in the NFL?
Yeah, I think I'd rather lose in the Super Bowl, although I'll say for those out there, maybe having that top 5 pick and a chance at a top wide receiver this year would be super awesome. But I think that the year throughout would have been really painful, and I would rather just get to the big game and win the AFC at least, and then have that experience to build on, because I think this team is so close. Obviously, getting in the divisional round so many times and understanding that they're losing it there, but I think they're just so close. You have to think that experience, at least getting to the Super Bowl for the first time for this group, would be good experience and could set them up for a lot of future success. Because I think not every team that goes for the first time loses, but I just think it's an experience. You can get wrapped up in the limelight and things like that, and having just getting that under their belt and maybe losing one early gives them the hunger to get back, and maybe allows them to handle the situations in future years.
Yeah, I think it also this question is perfect for asking a fan of a team like the Bills or even like the Detroit Lions, right? How much it means to just get this far after watching your team for year after year after year just not do anything. So I think that shows, and I was saying, I was talking to a couple of the Patriots guys, and they probably, they agreed that it probably has a lot to do with the fact that they won 6 Super Bowls in 20 years, right? And that feeling of, knowing what it's like to lose in Super Bowls and win in Super Bowls. But I don't think they have felt enough years yet of what it's like to be bad. So yeah, maybe that changes for them in a few years after they struggle a little bit. But just an interesting question I wanted to bring up. But now we can get into just diving into a little bit of offense, defense, what we need to do this offseason, what you liked from the team this season. So we'll start with the defense, and I will bring up Robbie's question first here. So he was just asking, what are your thoughts on the safety position during the offseason? I'll let you start with this one, Lance. What are your thoughts on the safety position with it looking like Micah Hyde is going to retire?
Yeah, I think you got to get one in the draft. A couple of good ones out there to be had, and I think hopefully with that second round pick, maybe we can get one of the better safeties to come in and help bolster this secondary. I'm not sure if they're going to be looking at a guy like Cameron Kitchens or Tyler Newbin at 28, but we'll see how all the offseason workouts go and things and where their projection is, and then if not, maybe would it probably have to trade up in the beginning of the second round maybe to make that pick, but we'll see. I mean, I think that. But you have to draft one. Basically, someone's going to play. Poyer isn't getting any younger either, so maybe someone changes position from corner, let's say, as well to try to help that. But yeah, they definitely have their work cut out for them to, kind of bolster that safety position to set them up for success moving forward.
Yeah, I think draft is definitely 100% need, and you brought up how 28 that's a kind of a tough spot to draft a safety because it's right before the second round, but it's also still for like first round. So it's safety is not a premier position. It's not a position that you're going to see going consistently in the top 20, top 15. You have to be really kind of a stud to go like that, like a Kyle Hamilton who went, I believe, 14th. So it's tough. Safety is a tough position because it's hard. You got to just predict where it's going to draft. Even last year with Brian Branch, he ended up falling to, I believe, 42, and he was a guy that people
Insane.
talked about in the first, right? But it's
But
just safety position is a weird one. I do agree with you. They have to draft one. Even if they bring Poyer back, I think you still have to at least sign kind of like a Taylor Rapp type of guy, like another just body that has experience that can play the position. So kind of having three guys that can go in case one of them goes down. So yeah, and also like you said, with Poyer being older, who knows what he's going to look like next year? So I think it could be a little tough for him. So what do you think, though? Before we move on from safeties, what do you think of that conversation of drafting him early, drafting him late, kind of just how the safety positions looked at in the draft? Do you think that's going to affect how Brandon Beane drafts this upcoming April?
yeah, man, like I say, I would target second, maybe third round at the latest, to try to get one in. You want a higher end guy that hopefully can come in and play right away, or at least, start getting his feet wet. We have, the conversations to talk about all offseason around like a Trey White or a Kyrie Elam moving to safety. Someone said Benford in the comments, but I just feel like, he's performed so well at the boundary corner that moving him at this point probably wouldn't be the best. So for me, I think that you probably want to target the second round to try to get one of those top guys at the safety position, have someone who hopefully can come in and be staple for years to come.
Yeah, and I do want to just talk about this Benford real quick because from what I heard, and I heard this about a little less than a month ago, I heard this from a close friend that's in the organization. That they before they re-signed Poyer last year, yeah, Poyer or Benford was looked at to be safety. They were looked at, he could be a potential safety for going down or going for the rest of the like his career and just this past season. Once they signed Poyer, they kind of shut it down, and they're at the point where, from what I've heard is they are happy with him at corner. They predict him to be that corner for years to come, whether it's CB2 for years to come or whether it becomes he can transform into that CB1 role. But yeah, I think they like him at safety. Now that could change. That could very well change. Who knows? I mean, we know how the off seasons are, right? That can change a lot in a week, in a day, in an hour. A lot can change. So yeah, it's going to be tough to see kind of who they move back to safety. So yeah, they definitely move somebody though, at least whether it's bringing another guy in or not. But John did have another question though. Do you think the Bills should try to re-sign Taylor Rapp? I personally, I'm going to go with I don't think they should try to sign Taylor Rapp again. I think he's too similar to a Jordan Poyer type of player, just that style. So I would like a guy like Taylor Rapp that's kind of like a low end veteran safety, bringing him in that maybe give him another chance. But Taylor Rapp, to me, not the guy I would go with. Now, if they re-sign him, I'm not going to be super mad at it. I think he played well at times. I think he had an up and down year, but he's a solid depth safety. So what do you think? Do you think they should try to re-sign Taylor Rapp?
Yeah, I'm not sure that. I guess I would have to see how the staff thinks that he fit the scheme and what they're trying to do with that position, because they kind of brought Poyer down in the box and allowed Rapp and Hyde to play up high many different times. So if that's something they're looking to do, and Rapp can fill that role, they got to get someone obviously to fill Hyde's role in that scenario, and that's the tough part. So I think that depending on what the philosophy might be moving forward on defense and what they're going to do with Poyer, that would probably hinge on the decision to bring back Rapp himself, just because I think he has a lot of the same skill set that Jordan Poyer has.
Yeah. I mean, safety, it's like we said, it's gonna be a tough one. They're gonna have to see how the market's going, because even last year, look at the market last year, right? High end safeties got paid a lot, but we saw then a guy like a Jordan Poyer not really get what he wanted on the open market. So we'll have to see how it goes with the safety position. Before we move on, though, from what they need to maybe do and add this offseason, we already talked about safety. Is there any other position in your mind that sticks out that they're like, they at least have to address, not necessarily go big on or go first or second round, but just address this upcoming offseason?
Yeah, 100% defensive line, defensive tackle more specifically. I think they definitely need to get some big bodies up front. Obviously, the defensive line is going into free agent. Most of it's going into free agency this offseason. So we're going to have a lot of retooling to do on the defensive line. And specifically, though, looking to get a really big body with high energy to play next to Ed Oliver, I think.
Yeah, I agree too. I think you got to go D line. You got to get interior D line, get another guy that will take over for Daquan Jones if they bring him back, which I would assume. I think they're definitely going to at least try hard to bring Daquan Jones back. But whether he's there or not, I think you got to bring an interior defense lineman in. Edge is going to be interesting again, like you said, with so many guys going to free agency. We're going to have to first see how that turns out. If AJ Epinesa comes back, if Leonard Floyd comes back. I'm trying to think about who else was it. I think Kingsley Jonathan they would have to bring back again, although he obviously wasn't a huge piece of the defensive line.
He's still part of the team. It's Vaughn, Kingsley, and Rousseau.
Yeah, so they're going to have defensive end, defensive line. They're also going to have to see about. I think third round. That's when you target a defensive lineman, interior defensive lineman, and I think no matter what, I think if I think you try to bring up Epinesa back, and then see about Floyd. If you can make it work, you can make it work. But if not, take that route like you did with Floyd. Take that route of let's wait until after the draft, after kind of free agencies kind of settled down, to then sign a pass rusher, because there's always pass rushers late in free agency that are available. So I like doing that defensively. The defense side of the ball, they got some areas to attack, to areas to kind of just get younger at, add for depth as well. So we'll see there. But
someone mentioned to me about adding a linebacker, and how do you feel? I mean, I think we got 4 linebackers coming back here with Milano, Bernard, Williams, and Spector. I think that's a good, I think we can sign some or maybe draft later round linebackers. But how do you feel about the linebacking core of this team right now? I guess it probably hinges a lot on what Milano comes back looking like. But with Williams, the way he played, Spector is still young, and Terrell Bernard, obviously, last year's draft. So, or 2 years now, I guess. But I think that for me, those 4 are a pretty good nucleus, and you can add a couple of guys here for special teams, but those 4 are probably going to be the core guys getting playing time.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's your core 4, but I think you need a 5th that's a better option than. And again, this isn't a hate at AJ Klein, but you have to get a better option than AJ Klein coming off his couch 2 weeks later. Right. If that happens, right? You have to have at least some sort of plan. And I'd like it to be a veteran, like an AJ Klein-esque player, but a guy that's a little bit more ready for the season, if that makes sense. So I think you got to bring at least somebody in to at least especially test these young guys. But I do like that core 4. They played well with that core 4. So And did we say Dodson as well? Is
He's
he?
a free agent.
I would like to see them bring Dodson back. I would like to see that at least try to happen, but again, that could be tough because he could have some suitors there waiting for him in free
Right.
agency, aka the Chicago Bears. I would not be shocked since they're stealing everybody from us for the past 2 years. But yeah, I think they got to at least try to bring back Dodson a little bit. But when we're talking about the defense, they did have an overall great season. I know the playoffs, against the Chiefs, it was kind of rough against the Chiefs, but overall, phenomenal season, especially with all these injuries that happened. So I just want to ask you, what area are you most proud of when you look at this defense from this past season?
Yeah, I mean, I think the linebacking core, the way it was banged up all season and the way they performed, Bernard grew and blossomed, tenfold on what we thought he could ever be. We were talking personally, I guess I'm not going to say you, but personally, I was talking like that pick was such a waste and that I was so upset that we wasted a third round pick on the guy. And here he is just, coming out and just crushing the season. So it made us look like absolute fools. And I'm proud of that. I think that, it's good for him. He comes out and performs that well. That's just an amazing accomplishment for the kid.
Yeah, I agree with linebackers. That was an unbelievable season. I also want to just highlight the secondary as well because they also had a lot of injuries there. Trey White was down. Micah Hyde went down for a little bit. Guys like Cam Lewis stepped up. He had a pretty good year, I think Cam Lewis did. So, I think defensive line, or not defensive line, secondary and linebackers are the two areas where we as Bills fans should definitely be very proud of. But I also want to just highlight Sean McDermott. I am proud of his defensive play calling and just the way that he handled the defense. I know that I gave him a lot of slack for how the Chiefs game went, but overall, as the season went, or as the season goes, I thought he was phenomenal. I thought he had a phenomenal season as the defensive coordinator or technical defensive coordinator. But yeah, I think he's one area as well. I think Sean McDermott, we say it a lot, doesn't get the credit he deserves. Gets a lot more hate, I think, than he deserves. Which that comes as being a head coach. So I understand where the hate comes from. He's a head coach. But I think he did a phenomenal job this season. So yeah, linebacker, secondary, those are who we're proud of. But what about the other side of the ball? What were you a little bit disappointed in? Whether it's special teams, whether it we didn't really mention the defensive line at all, or whether it's whatever it was, what area kind of disappointed you throughout the season?
Yeah, the defensive line, I guess the amount of pressure they got, especially in the last playoff game, was certainly disappointing. I don't think they were disappointing all year. I think guys like Ed Albert had hell of a season. Von Miller specifically didn't, and that was, a single disappointment on that line. But overall, I was hoping for just a little bit more constant pressure from the guys up front, and we got it in some games, but it was just a little bit more inconsistent than I would have liked.
Yeah, especially towards the end of the year, it kind of just faded out, right? But early in the year, it was 4, 5, 6 sacks a game. It seemed like. But yeah, now it was a little struggle towards the end of the year. I think defensive line. I do also want to just talk about the special teams. I think the special teams was one of the most disappointing parts of the season. Yeah. I mean, it was from week 1 too, right? From week 1, it was brutal all the way until the last game of the season against the Chiefs. It was also brutal. Whether it was bad coverage on kicks and kickoffs and punts, right? Or whether it was just even simply kicking field goals or whatever it is, or going for it or faking a field goal. It was pretty rough. So I think it's it's got to just the special teams. I would not be shocked if we see the special teams coordinator, who I'm actually blanking on his name right now.
Drew Smiley.
Yeah, I would not be shocked if he is relieved of his duties, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I would absolutely. I don't clamor for people's jobs. I said this even when we were talking about McDermott, but I just don't see, I don't see a way that this team can return with him as the special teams coordinator next year.
Yeah, it was rough. So I mean, special teams, it was just they got to clean it up next year. It was brutal. Whether it was, like I said, whether it was covering punts, whether it was field position or whatever it was, just something seemed off with special teams all year. So we'll see if they make a move there. We do have some questions though from the audience, from the comment section. I'll bring up where John's got 2 of them. First one is, if Micah Hyde retires, which it seems like he is, should he coach for the Bills? I'm just going to keep this short and sweet on my end. I would love if he did. I don't think if he does come back as a coach, I don't think it would be right away. I think he would probably take a few years off. What do you think there, Lance?
Yeah, not too sure, I guess, on what his aspirations are. I think he'd be a hell of a coach, and I would love to have him, like you said. But yeah, I would expect it wouldn't be an immediate thing that he comes back right after the season.
Yeah, I agree there too. So then the next one from John, who do you think will take Eric Washington's place? I have not looked too deep into defensive line coaches at all, but I will say again, it was another one of those things where the defensive line over the years was kind of underwhelming compared to what we thought. So I think it's got to be somebody that can at least get the pass rush going and then keep it going the whole season. Because Eric Washington, he didn't do a horrible job, didn't do a bad job, but I don't think he did an unbelievable job, if you ask me. Because the defensive line, like we said, disappeared here and there certain games.
Right.
But do you got anybody that you've been kind of looking at yet? I know it's kind of defensive line coaches are a little bit tougher to kind of look at. You got to wait till everything settles, really, with especially coordinator wise, to kind of see about that.
Right. Yeah, I haven't really done a deep delve into maybe who is going to come in on that position coach side of things. Was looking at some things before this, as far as like not talking defensive line coach specifically, but as far as like, coaches in general, things could slide around. Maybe someone gets promoted from within the Bills' current staff, and then you have Holcomb there. Holcomb can probably slide in and coach a position if he needs to, and then they can bring other people in. They are going to interview the Sean last name just escaped me now. But
Philadelphia Eagles old coordinator.
Yeah, spent a lot of time with the Bears, and I think Sean Desai, I think he could be a guy where if he doesn't get a defensive coordinator position that he wants, can come in and kind of be a positional guy.
Yeah, and then we got two more questions over here. Sorry to kind of just go off there, but I just saw another question come in. But the first one I want to just go with. Roy came in here with a question saying, how many times did Josh leave the field near the end of the games? The defense gave up game-winning drives. Is that McDermott or the defensive self? I think it's a combo of both. It's and on top of also just that's kind of how football is, right? Teams offenses they can be stagnant all game, and then as soon as it becomes that last drive, right? That seems they put together. So I'm going to go with a mix of both. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that it was tough. New England's the toughest one I can remember, off the top of my head. Roy, I think that the New England game was absolute bogus that we lost that. Outside of that, I think Denver was another one. Obviously, being there and at home, that's disappointing. So yeah, it happened a handful of times, and could have happened again this week. Even if Tyler made that kick, you never know. Again, if they would have been able to hold Mahomes and the Chiefs to not be able to just kick a field goal. So that's why it was really important there to get a touchdown the last drive and try to get a 4-point lead, and obviously didn't happen. So.
Yeah, and then the last question before we move on here is from David. And David says, I think we'll look into hiring Ron Rivera as the coordinator, the Bean McDermott kind of Panther connection. That doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't think that they will, to be honest. Washington's defense was very bad last year, like historically bad last year. So I don't think defensively they would look for Rivera. Now, like you said, the connection could make it kind of more interesting there. But that also actually did bring me into my last question of the defense. So you could answer kind of both as you're going there, Lance. But one, do you think Ron Rivera will be looked at to be the defensive coordinator? And two, who do you think should be the defensive coordinator?
Yeah, Bobby Babich has to be the defense coordinator. And if they let him get away, I think that's going to be a very, very big shame on McDermott. But Bobby Babich is my pick for the defense coordinator, and I want him to call the plays too. But I'm okay with McDermott calling plays. I don't know. I mean, there's plenty of Andy Reid's a great example of it. Head coaches calling offensive plays, and there's no reason that McDermott can't be the head coach and call defensive plays. I'm not sure why people have such an issue. It just happens all the time with a head coach calling plays for whatever side of the ball that their expertise is on. So I'm fine with either way, but I think Bobby Babich has to have that defensive coordinator title, and then bring in guys to fill in the positions. If they do lose Babbage and he just, he gets something somewhere else, then I think guys like Rivera or, someone's talking about Vrabel. I think Vrabel's probably going to want to be a head coach, so I don't think that's going to work out. But if a guy like Rivera is willing to come in and be the DC and not call plays, that might work out. But I don't see Sean McDermott relinquishing play calling duties right away, unless it's somebody potentially like Bobby Babbitt, where it's like, okay, I trust you, you've been in my system, and we're going to give you this responsibility because that'll help us keep you. That's the kind of scenario where I could see him giving it up.
Yeah, I agree. I think they can't let Bobby Babbitt go somewhere else to be defense coordinator. You just can't let it happen. If they do, I would like to see Sean McDermott as just basically defense coordinator again. There's not many out there like the Eagles defense coordinator. Man, I really hope they don't go that route because the Eagles defense last year was horrible, horrible for a while. So I don't think they should go that route. And then when it comes to Vrabel, I believe Vrabel runs a different scheme. I believe he's a 3-4 defense, if I'm not mistaken, and the Bills obviously run a 4-3. So I don't think, even if Vrabel was interested in defensive coordinator, I don't believe he's the same scheme. So I don't believe it would really work that well for him being defense coordinator, but who knows, like we said. And then, yes, I do also think if they did make Bobby Babbitt, within this comment from John, I do believe they probably would make him assistant coach as well, kind of like a dual factor there. But we'll see. So I think either Bobby Babbitt or just keep it Sean McDermott. Don't get too crazy on it. So yeah, I think it's pretty easy for the defense coordinator. But let's move on to the offense now. We talked a lot about the defense there. Defense really wasn't, like we said, a huge issue throughout the whole season. There were a lot of people saying, "Oh, the defense is fine, whatever. Don't need to worry about them," even with all the injuries. The offense, however, it had its ups and downs. As we all know, especially seeing Ken Dorsey get fired halfway through the season, that tells you all you need to know about how the offense was this season. So yeah, before we get into just talking about who should be the offense coordinator next year, what they need to do, what they need to fix with the offense, what was one area that you thought, wow, I was really, really shocked and really proud of this group? What was one that you said, wow, this was bad, we need to fix this?
Offensive line continuity was great all year, and having a guy like
Cyrus Torrance?
Escape me. Cyrus Torrance come in and just play right away was great. And I think that just a great continuity overall, guys just not missing time on the offensive line was phenomenal. It's a great story, honestly, and I'm going to dive into that a little deeper here as we get into more off-season content, because I just think that is just unheard of, and one of those things that just was a great moment. Guys like Mitch Morse kind of staying healthy for a whole year. The guy had just had so many concussions and had some trouble where we were questioning if he could even come back and play this season, and now he's coming back for yet another season, most likely. So that was just something really proud. And then on the other side of it is just lack of explosive plays, lack of, we did have the Diggs play, and then the Shakir play, which 80-some yards, was 81 yards, I think, was the longest play in the NFL at some point. I don't know if anybody else got a longer play since then, but at the time it happened, it was the longest play in the NFL. So we did have that, but just not enough. We talked about it with the Chiefs game. Chiefs had 10 plus plays with 15 plus yards, and the Bills had 4. Just it's not enough. They're not getting enough down the field and getting those bigger plays consistently enough for my liking. And that's going to go into the further discussion when we get into what we want to see happen this offseason.
Yeah, I agree with you though on both parts. One, the offensive line, they were phenomenal. I mean, even a guy like Spencer Brown, right? A lot of people had him written off. A lot of people were done with him. Said, nope, right tackle, need a new one. A lot of people, especially even going into last offseason, thought, well, we need to replace both guard positions. We need another center soon. We need a right tackle. Well, it was just everything, right? It was a little bit of everything on the offensive line. And now we're going into this offseason thinking, well, we don't really need to worry about offensive line as much, or if at all, compared to other positions. So it's really honestly awesome to just see this offensive line really just put it all together this season. I know they had I believe there was like a 2-3 game stretch where it was a little rough. But again, it's hard to be perfect all year, right? You're going to have games where you struggle.
And I think on that end, it's like I'm very proud that they were able to have that continuity. But yeah, the effectiveness the whole season wasn't completely there, like you mentioned. The guard play was just so inconsistent. Some games just very, very bad. And the Chiefs game was an example of that, but other games, carried us. The Cowboys game is an example where when they were effective, we could run on anybody basically. So just very up and down, but I think that the continuity overall was the awesome point for the offensive line.
Yeah, and it's even more awesome that next year it should be the same five at least starting next season. So
Hmm.
not too much to worry about with the offensive line. And then disappointment. I'm just gonna go the weapons overall. You were just talking about big plays. I'm going everybody as a weapon, whether it was the signings that they brought in with, you know, with Sherfield being a little disappointing. Hardy was a little bit disappointing. Kincaid was good though. Kincaid was a good one. I know a lot of people are like, well, he was very disappointing. Well, for a rookie tight end, he was unbelievable. Okay,
Yeah, absolutely.
and he wasn't even too big of a focal point in this offense. It's not like they look to throw him the ball 10, 15 times a game, right? So he's just getting started. So I think, yeah, he's another guy that I think, at least out of the weapons was a little bit of a positive. Same with Khalil Shakir, but overall, I mean, Latavius Murray just again rough end of the season there. Just everybody kind of overall on the weapons over as a whole was just a little bit rough there. But I also want to bring up John's comment here. Hines coming back, that will help. That should help at least with explosive plays because he's a very explosive guy out of the backfield. That's why they got him, right? They wanted to use him out of the backfield. They wanted to use him in space. And I think now
Well, he
another.
was. Is he going to be? I don't know.
Yeah, now that's true. Now we'll have to see. He's still, I believe, semi young. I'm gonna look it up here. Naheem Hines, I believe he's about 28 or 29. So getting to that age for running back, 27. So he's still in that running back prime era. So he's still pretty good there. And then I see a lot of comments coming in about the wide receivers and Diggs kind of also being kind of a little bit scary watching him, decline. But I think when it comes to Diggs, he'll be fine and everything like that. But as a whole, yeah, you need to upgrade, which brings me into our next question, which was what do you want them to see them do in the offseason? And that is number one, I think, for a lot of people, get a wide receiver. I think you have to do it through the draft. You're not getting a Pittman, in my opinion. You're not getting a T. Higgins, not going to get somebody like that. So I think draft, you have to do that. And then on the other side, I also would like to see a power back come in here a little bit. Ty Johnson was nice. I'd like to see him back as a third or fourth kind of back, along with Hines being there. But you need to bring in a big bully back, whether that's through the draft or through free agency. So those are my two things to kind of just get going in the offseason for the offense. Get another wide receiver that can potentially maybe be that wide receiver one throughout his career, or just be a very, very good number two, and then also get a power back. So there's my two things. What do you got for what do you want them to see them do in the offseason?
Yeah, definitely want to add a running back through the draft. I don't want to spend a high pick on one, but I think definitely getting one of the bulldozers in this draft we could get at a decent spot, maybe fifth round or something. And then weapons, you have to get at least one, probably two. I would love to have three even, but we got to get just the resources we have, maybe not allow us to get, like you mentioned, got big names off the street, free agents, but I just think that you got to get weapons. You got to get big play, chunk play people that can come in and just contribute at a high level and be able to, when we're taking Diggs off the field, have the defense not know it, because Diggs isn't getting younger like we saw. He needs to come off the field here and there, and when that happens, I think we need to be able to be comfortable with the Bills being able to make plays, and so far I think that's not been the case. So I'd like to see that them add that this offseason.
Yeah, and we've seen even other quarterbacks like a guy like Patrick Mahomes struggle without a solid number two, right? He still had Travis Kelce over there in Kansas City, and they struggled throughout the regular season, just like Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and it's kind of similar situations. Both Kelce, Diggs getting older, they both had down years compared to what they've had. They'll both, I think, be great next year, but again, now both teams are saying, well, we need to add somebody. And it's kind of funny because you saw it 2 years ago with the draft with Kansas City drafting a corner, the Bills drafting a corner. Now it's kind of similar with the receiver situation. They need to go in, get a receiver. And I think like we said, with talking about Diggs, I think he'll be fine. I think it's just a combination of, he's getting a little bit older. He might be slowing down just a little bit, but he's still, to me, top 10 in the league. He still gets open. It's just he garners so much attention,
Right.
that by the time maybe he's getting the ball thrown to him, yeah, maybe he is a little bit off, maybe not fully into it because he's not getting force fed the ball as much either. That was the other thing is when Dorsey was there, they were force feeding Diggs, where you didn't really see that with Joe Brady. You saw, okay, yeah, we're going to try to get the ball to Diggs, but we're not going to force feed it, right?
Right.
So I think Diggs will be fine. Definitely got to get another number two receiver, at least maybe that future number one. So yeah, we'll see what they end up doing. But the last question about the offense before we get into our little wrap up here. I asked you about the defense coordinator. I'm going to ask you about the offense coordinator. This one might be a little bit easier. The Bills have interviewed a couple people, Joe Brady being one of them, another one being Thad Lewis, the legend of Thad Lewis. I thought he was going to be the guy. I thought he was. I'm not going to lie. But yeah, he got an interview as well. He was the QB coach last year in Tampa. So he was part of that crew that helped turn Baker around. So what do you think offense coordinator wise? Who do you think they should go with? And if it's not Joe Brady, are you going to be a little disappointed?
I think Joe Brady should be the offensive coordinator for sure. But no, I'm not going to be disappointed if he's not. I think that if Brady is the OC, then you need to bring in a quarterbacks coach that can really be down on the field with Josh Allen and be in his ear and get him in the right frame of mind each and every time he comes to the sideline to go back out. And if Brady's not the OC, then we need someone who can come in with a veteran presence and really make sure that we're taking this offense to the heights that it's capable of with the talent we have there. They stayed healthy all year and just didn't hit the marks that we kind of expected. Allen obviously led the league in total touchdowns, so it's not like they were a slouch by any means, but just we shouldn't have a problem outscoring some of these teams, and we did this year, and it was very, very frustrating, I think. So I think we have to get someone in who's not going to hold back and be able to kind of unleash things. And some of that comes down to making plays too. So it's not all on coaching, but I just want to make sure that, my philosophy would be get somebody in here that's going to, be able to run the race car at its fastest speed. So.
Yeah, I would like to see Joe Brady as offensive coordinator. I think he should be. Because one, I think people also need to understand that this was not a Joe Brady offense that we watched necessarily. Like, yes, he was calling the plays. Yes, they probably changed a little bit. But as a whole, this was Ken Dorsey's playbook and offense with a twist of Joe Brady, right? It wasn't Joe Brady took over and it's all of a sudden Joe Brady's offense. So I would like to see him in his full offense for a season. So that's one reason. And two, I don't know if bringing another outside guy would help a guy like Josh Allen. I don't think. Right. I think he would want a familiar face in a Joe Brady, right? So I think Joe Brady's got to be the guy. Thad Lewis, I think, would be fine. I wouldn't be super mad at that. It's just, again, he's a little bit more unproven when it comes to coaching wise. But obviously, he's played the NFL as a quarterback, so he knows a little bit about coaching there, or at least playing offense and playing in the NFL. So I wouldn't be mad at Thad Lewis, but I think he got to go. Joe Brady got to give him another year. So yeah, I think it's a pretty easy conversation there when it comes to the offensive coordinator position. But before we get into our wrap up there are some questions I have here that I had marked down. The first one's not a question. First one is a comment I saw from David, and it was actually, I believe, a misquote, kind of mistype, where he said never part way with student quarterbacks, and I believe he meant stud quarterbacks. And when you said student, that for some reason made me think of backup quarterbacks. So do you think, Lance, the backup quarterback position needs to be a little bit more, not necessarily emphasized? Well, yeah. Do you think it needs to be more emphasized? Do you think maybe draft, or do you think free agency, or just bring back Kyle Allen?
I'd like to have someone drafted this year for sure. Someone, obviously, you can't really say, oh, bring in someone to push Josh Allen. Josh Allen's one of the most highly motivated people on this planet, which makes him so great. So you're not going to bring anybody to push him, but a young guy that can come in and just have athleticism and be able to play the backup role. And if, God forbid, Josh Allen got hurt, maybe have a chance to kind of step up. And someone, because the backup quarterbacks on the market now, you kind of know what you're getting. So I feel like with drafting somebody, you can kind of have that, Drew Bledsoe, Tom Brady potential. It's not, obviously it's the extreme, but I'm just saying the potential of having that guy in your back pocket where if the position calls for it, he has the ability to step up, and it's not like, okay, we're just getting this you have a kind of a floor and a ceiling that you're getting with some of these veteran guys where you know what you're getting each and every time. And a younger guy would just be a little bit more, have probably a little more athleticism and just be able to have that unknown ceiling, let's say, and be able to have a potential. And I wouldn't ever think that we would need to discuss moving on from Josh Allen anytime soon. And I'm not trying to create that discussion. I'm just saying that, if a backup comes in, maybe somebody we draft this year could have a better ceiling than the guys on the market right now.
Yeah, I agree with you there too. And I also, you talked about how we know what most of these backups are going to have, right? And I want to go a little bit deeper into saying that we don't know what the backups the Bills can afford will be able to do, right?
Mhm.
As yeah, you can go out and get a top tier backup quarterback, but you're gonna have to spend money on it because like look at even Case Keenum last year, right? Got what,
Mhm.
$6-7 million. Bills aren't gonna pay that for a backup quarterback, but I just don't think you can go again with Kyle Allen.
They can barely probably pay Tyree Jackson for a backup quarterback position.
You could, yeah, you could. I mean, look, Kyle Allen
Just a joke.
didn't do horrible, right? He wasn't really asked to do too much, and I know he's boys with Josh Allen, but I don't know how many people can tell me with confidence that if Josh Allen went down and Kyle Allen came into the football game, that they would be even remotely confident that the Bills are going to win that game. Kyle Allen's played in the NFL. He knows what it's like to play in the NFL. He's a very talented player. But like you said, we know what we're getting out of him. And to me, it's not enough to be confident if Josh Allen went down, where a backup rookie, like you said, we don't know necessarily, and at least we'll bring a little bit of excitement there. And then the other aspect of, I don't think we can bring in a backup that is better than a Kyle Allen or better than somebody like that, right? So I think you got to draft someone late, sixth, seventh round, take a shot on somebody, even if it's late fifth, take a shot on somebody, right? I believe,
Right.
do they have 2/5 this year? I believe they do. I
We
want to
can
say,
get a guy like Trey Lance, maybe. He's already in the league, but he's got a great last name. Obviously, my first name, so I'm a little bit biased. But no, I think that that kind of guy has athleticism and kind of he hasn't played a ton, and when he did play, it wasn't terrible. I don't think just a matter of injuries got in the way, and then they found someone else who played much better. So uh, if you can get somebody in that situation, maybe. But again, I think the later rounds would be more prudent to try to get someone. And you've seen a lot of guys, later round guys, have some success. So I wouldn't be shy on trying to pull a trigger and trying to get one that hopefully never has to see the field, but at least have one there who is capable in the situation where we might need him for a game or two here or there.
yeah, and I also think that a guy that actually just popped in my head that would be a little bit interesting for a backup signing, if he would accept being a backup and accept maybe less money because he probably would have to come to Buffalo, would be a Ryan Tannehill.
Mhm.
Obviously not the same type of player as Josh Allen at all, but veteran, a guy that's proven he can lead a team and kind of be a leader for an offense that, if Josh Allen does go down for a few games, can at least kind of install that confidence of having him back there. So maybe a
And
guy
I
like
think Josh played through a lot of injuries this year, and I think it's largely because the backup just hadn't. It's like, hey, wheels are going to fall off if I'm not in this game.
and it's not gonna, him playing through those injuries, it's gonna add up, right? So
For
at
sure.
some point, we're gonna need to bring somebody in. So interesting conversation. I just want to bring up there. Got two more quick ones here. Two more quick comments here. The first one's from Roy. Again, not a question, but it just made me think of kind of bringing it into a question. He said, in my opinion, Hines will have to take a pay cut to stay. Hines, I believe, is on the book for $5 million this year. I believe only like 250,000 of that's guaranteed. So they'd save about $4.5 million from cutting him. Do you think they try to make him take a pay cut, or do you think they just rock with him at the $5 million?
Yeah, it's going to be hard. I hope they're going to try to get him to take a pay cut because of everything that happened, but I'm not sure if it'll be successful. And I think they definitely would benefit from that. I'm not even confident that they're definitely going to have him back next year, but I'm not sure what the dead cap is if they cut him. So there's not really, as long as he's healthy and can come back and contribute and show that he's at least going to be part of what he was before his injury. Then you got to keep him, but then at what cost? I don't know. I feel like that's a good point. I think I would agree with that point. I just don't know if it can be done.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see with Hines. Hines is an interesting one. I know that people were talking about that right when he got hurt of how the Bills were going to handle his paying situation. And now it's getting to the time where we'll see how they handle it and how they go about it.
Could be an extension to offset. That might work if you give him a 2-year extension or something and kind of offset some stuff. That'll help with that. That's my most likely scenario that I can see with Hines.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll see how it ends up going with Hines. I do hope they try to bring him back if they do cut him, and I hope that he is part of the team next year because I like his skill set. But
Sure.
again,
I was looking forward to it this year. I thought, it was like, oh yeah, it's going to be a good complement to what our running back room is, and then obviously that didn't come to fruition.
yeah. Well, we'll see if he comes back the same. That's another big question, as you said. Well, he's got to come back the same first. So we'll see about him. And then the last question before we wrap it up here is from John saying, where do you think Shorter will be? I'm just going to start this one real quick. I think he'll start as that 5'6" receiver, unless he comes in and really just shows out, right? So I think he'll be that 5'6" guy to start the year. Where will he end up at the end of the year? No idea. Not a clue. He could end up as wide receiver 2 for all I know.
I
But
think
like
they're going to push him to that point. I think they're going to try to get him to be that wide receiver too, just with his frame and his body. And they drafted him for that. They've been grooming him all year. I'm not sure what he's looked like because we haven't seen him, but I just think that I hope their eggs better not being all in that basket, but I think they're going to absolutely try to give him the push towards being that bigger physical outside receiver to let guys like Shakir and Kincaid eat in the inside in the middle kind of the field and let Shorter be that exterior kind of guy where he can back shoulder fade him. And definitely, I'm excited to see what he can do in the red zone because I tell you what, next year, he could have 6 to 10 touchdowns if he can come out and be effective in the red zone. And he can kind of get high pointing the ball and that kind of thing. So you could see him go from kind of the bottom here being injured all year to coming out next year and being shining light like Bernard kind of was this year.
yeah, I like Shorter. I just yeah, it's gonna be tough for him to kind of get that spot, especially because it does seem like they're kind of leaning towards drafting a guy this year at
Yeah,
receiver.
I think they're going to draft, but I just think that they're also going to try to, hope that he can maybe seize that kind of role.
I think he'll have a role on this offense. I think that he'll be a guy that even if maybe he doesn't become a regular guy, he's a guy that can just every once in a while plug and play, right? Plug and play. Because I liked him coming out of the draft. Didn't love him, but I liked him coming out of the draft. So we'll see. He's an interesting one. He's kind of in that Isaiah Hodgins type of spot right now of like we don't really know what he's even got too much.
Right.
Where that was kind of the same way with Hodgins. So we'll see. I think Bean will definitely try to keep him around. Also due to the fact that what happened with Hodgins as well, with him getting stolen as well. So we'll see what happens with him. But that's all we got for offense defense talk. Let's just get into our show wrap up here. And usually with the show wrap up, we talk about our predictions and our hot takes. The Bills obviously don't play this weekend, so we can't do that. But we can do that with the games that are going to be happening this weekend: the AFC Championship, NFC Championship, and then we can do one or two, 3 hot takes, however many we want to do for those games as well. So we'll do our predictions first. Who do you got then? Let's start with the NFC. Who do you got there? The 49ers or the Detroit Lions?
Looks like Deebo Samuel's going to play in this game. I got the Niners. I think they're just too good. Detroit's a great story. I'm not going to be disappointed by any means. One of my best friend is Niners fan, so I'm going to pull for him and his team to get it done.
Do you got a score prediction at all?
I didn't think about that, but I'll say off top of my head 37-27.
Yeah, I also had a 4-point game as well. I had 27-23 49ers. I just think the 49ers are going to be too much for Detroit. I think Detroit's a little bit inexperienced when it comes to getting this deep. Obviously, they're a little bit experienced, but they do have a guy in Jared Goff who's been to a Super Bowl, so he knows what the playoffs are like. So we'll see. I think 49ers are going to take that one. And then the AFC Championship, Chiefs versus Ravens. Obviously, nobody wants to talk about who they want to win this game or who they think's going to win this game. I'm going 25-21 Chiefs. I think it's going to be another close one, but I just think at the end of the day, I think this Chiefs defense is going to be a little too much, and I think Chris Jones is going to have a huge day. I think Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs is a different specimen. So I think the Kansas City Chiefs pull this one out just a little bit. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the NFL script that's been circling around and go with the Ravens. I think that that's just a little shot there. I think Lamar gets the monkey off his back, gets it done, heads to his first Super Bowl. And this team's very talented. The Ravens defense is very, very good. And I don't think the Chiefs are going to be able to score that many points. So I'm going to go 30-17 Ravens win.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hopefully some good games, right? Tomorrow, hopefully some good games. Obviously, we do wish the Bills were playing, but hey, now you don't got to stress as much, I guess.
Right.
You can
Sit
just
back
enjoy
and
the game
enjoy the show.
and you can root for whichever teams you don't want to win, which I'm assuming most people are going to be rooting for the Chiefs, or not the Chiefs, the Ravens, when it comes to Bills Mafia. But yeah, we'll see. Do you have any hot takes at all for this weekend that might happen? If not, we can just skip that part. But do you got one or two of them at all?
Odell Beckham Jr. shows up, has at least one touchdown, and 50+ yards in a game that the Ravens take over. And like I said, my score prediction on that is 30-17, and I think Odell Beckham Jr. plays a big role in that tomorrow.
All right, I like that one. I'll go the other game then. I'll go Niners and Lions. I think there'll be a trick play touchdown in that game, some one way or another. You know how Dan Campbell loves to get creative. And the 49ers as well. Kyle Shanahan knows a thing or two about offense. So I could see. I think there'll be a little trick play touchdown in that game, whether it's either team. I could see either team doing it. So I guess that will be my hot take for this Sunday. So yeah, that's unless you had another one that's gonna do it for us. Do you got another one at all or no?
I'm good, brother.
Yeah, I was gonna say yeah. We're all. Yeah, so that's gonna do it for us. Another great one. You guys were awesome in the comments. And I actually just saw Sandra's comment of my blood pressure has been elevated since the last game. Well, we don't have to worry about it too much anymore, Sandra. We can take a deep breath and just enjoy tomorrow. We don't have to have our blood pressure going up tomorrow too much. But yeah, just saw that comment. It made me laugh a little bit there. But it was another great show. You guys were awesome again. Be sure, again, I do want to just point out, go check out 10 Lives Club. Go check out whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whether it's just their page as well. If you can donate, please donate as any that you can. They do amazing things over there. Like I said, I got the chance to see and kind of just get into. They showed me, everything. They showed me how it works, how their system works, how everything works. We have to see some of the cats and everything. So they really do. They do an amazing job. So please go check them out. If you can donate. Even if you can't, just support them in any way you can. So shout out to 10 Lives Club. Lance, again, thank you for joining me. It was awesome again. Any last words before we hop off?
No, just be a good human being every day, and better today than yesterday. So great stuff.
Yeah. And as I
again,
always say,
great stuff with the 10 Lives Club, and go Bills.
Yeah, sorry I cut you off there. I might kind of just went in and out there a little bit, so I didn't actually fully catch that. But yeah. Thanks for if you haven't checked out the interview either, go check that out. As Lance said, it's on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of those. So go check them out. But again, appreciate all you guys in the comments. Awesome one. And yeah, go spread some love. Like I always say, go spread some love. And as always, go Bills, go Sabres as well. Got another big dub today. So we'll see you guys next week. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and go spread some love.